I'm guessing you're here because you're looking for ways to speak your husband's love language. I got you, sis. Keep watching. Hey lovelies, I'm Larissa J, and today we are talking about how to speak your husband's love language. Now, this is a really interesting topic that I'm so excited to share with you all because there's so much great information that is going to transform your marriage if you stick to these principles. Now, of course, what I'm talking about today comes specifically from the book, The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. Girl, if you have not read this book, you need to stop what you're doing and check it out. 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman is an amazing book. I'm going to leave a link in the description box in case you haven't read it yet, but it has a lot of great information that can help you with your communication of love to your husband. So before we get started in how you can speak your husband's love language, I first want to go through the 5 love languages. I think it's important to make sure we all know what they are, and then we'll talk about how you can speak your husband's love language and how you can do that on a day-to-day basis. Okay, so we all have these emotional love tanks that need to be filled, and the best way to fill them is by speaking one another's love language. So what are the 5 love languages? I'm glad you asked. So the 5 love languages are quality time, receiving gifts, acts of service, words of affirmation, and physical touch. Everyone communicates love in one of these 5 ways. And of course, you can communicate love in more than just one of these ways. For example, you might communicate and express your love through physical touch and words of affirmation, while somebody else's might be vastly different. So it's important to first identify what your love language is, as well as what your husband's love language is. Now, the great thing about this book that I mentioned by Gary Chapman is that in the back of the book, there is a little questionnaire that will allow you to ask your husband questions, and he can ask you questions, and you all can learn what your love languages are. As long as you know what those 5 love languages are and what they entail, you can kind of just go by basic observation of what your spouse does and enjoys and appreciates, and you can kind of pinpoint what their love language is that way as well. Speaking one another's love language is very important because it helps us to feel secure in our spouse's love. And this is key, especially in a marriage, where a lot of times, if this doesn't happen, if the love tank is empty or the person doesn't feel secure in their spouse's love, that's when territory can get a little rocky. I do want to point out that you and your spouse's love language will most likely be different, and that's okay. What that means is you're going to have to commit to learning how to speak your husband's love language and vice versa. Just like if you are a native English speaker and you want to learn how to speak Spanish or Japanese, it's the same thing with the love languages. You might instinctively and innately communicate and express love through acts of service, but your husband might communicate and express love in a different way. And in order to make all of this work, especially within your marriage, to have everything just kind of free flowing and smooth without too many hiccups and complications, it's going to be important that you do take the time to learn how to speak your husband's love language. Now, it's important to make sure that you are committing yourself to taking the time out to speak your husband's love language as opposed to communicating in your own love language, because when our love tanks are full, our behaviors are different. In fact, when your love tank is full, you express more positive behaviors. But when your love tank is empty, sometimes people tend to withdraw or pull away. So it's important to take the time out to learn how your spouse best receives love so that you can communicate that properly. They can receive it, their love tank is full, and in turn, they're expressing their love to you in a positive way. Now let's start out by talking about quality time. Quality time is undivided attention. It is focused attention on your spouse. This means no devices. Now, quality time is definitely one of my love languages, and it has been for quite a while. And this is something that's always important to me. No devices, complete undivided attention. This also includes no multitasking. Stop everything, sit down, and give your husband your undivided attention. This also includes quality conversation. Talking about your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, being open and vulnerable all fall under the category of good quality time. With this also includes eye contact so that your husband knows he has your undivided attention. Now, quality time does not confine you to solely sitting in a room and talking to one another. Quality time includes doing things with one another. So you can go to an amusement park, go shopping, you can go hiking or work out, you can go to dinner or a concert with one another. Quality time just includes you and your spouse sharing time together that is undivided, focused attention without any distractions. The next love language I want to talk about is words of affirmation. So with words of affirmation, it's important to remember that compliments and words of appreciation are powerful. Now, this includes speaking these words of affirmation in public and in private. So don't be shy to tell your husband how good he looks or how amazing he is in public, just as you would do in private. Something as simple as "you look handsome" is a word of affirmation or a compliment. One little tip that I recommend is compliment the good. Don't harp on the bad or the negative. So if your husband is doing something good, like maybe last week you asked your husband to fix something and you see that he's doing it today, take the time out to compliment his work and thank him and express your appreciation for him doing what you asked him to do, instead of nagging him and asking why it took him so long or whatever the case may be. Another way to affirm with your words is through encouraging words. For example, "I know that you can do this. If you decide to do this, I know that you are going to be amazing, and I want you to understand that I'm right here with you. I'm here to support you." Another way that you can do this is through kind words or even words of humility. So don't make demands, but rather you want to make requests. So maybe something like, "Hey, honey, I was wondering, do you think it's possible if you wash the dishes tomorrow because I know I'm gonna have a long day?" Making a humble request instead of saying you need to do the dishes tomorrow is going to go so much further in your communication of love to your husband. Another thing that I recommend for words of affirmation are love notes. Love notes are really sweet and romantic, and they're keepsakes. And if your husband's love language is words of affirmation, this is something that he's sure to appreciate. Now, one thing that I recommend that I like to do with my husband is sticky love notes, is what I like to call them, where basically I get a sticky note and I write a love note on there, and I'll often put it in his lunchbox or on the mirror or next to his bed, somewhere that I know that he's going to see it. And that is something that I know he really appreciates. It's something that he does for me as well. And I think it's the sweetest thing. So if your husband speaks that language, words of affirmation, that's something that you might want to try. You're welcome. Okay, the next love language that we're going to talk about is receiving gifts. A gift is something tangible that says, "I was thinking of you," or "Yes, I remembered." It is a symbol of love, and it doesn't always have to be something that is purchased. While it can be purchased, it also can be something that is found or even handmade. Things like candy or a meal when you know that he's hungry, or even your presence is a gift, especially if you're always busy. So thinking of different things that you know are going to communicate to your husband that you remembered something that he said or something that he likes is a great way to communicate your love to him. The next love language that we're going to talk about is acts of service. So acts of service is when you do something that you know that he would like you to do. For example, cooking dinner, or maybe changing the baby's dirty diaper, cleaning the bathroom, or vacuuming or folding the laundry, or even organizing his office. If it's something that he has expressed that he needs done, that is something that you can hone in on and use to your advantage to communicate and express your love to him. Now, again, if this is your love language, make sure that you request and don't demand. That's the important thing with acts of service. Request it, but don't demand it of your spouse. And finally, the last and fifth love language that we're going to talk about today is physical touch. Now, this one sounds quite obvious, but there are two types of physical touch. You have explicit physical touch, which takes your complete attention. For example, something like a back rub or intimacy. But then you also have implicit physical touch, which is really brief and it only takes a moment, like maybe a hand on the shoulder or a quick kiss. Sitting close during a movie or holding hands are also examples of implicit physical touch. Needless to say, you can express your love through sexual and non-sexual forms of physical touch. And a lot of times I hear people don't really know how to express their love through physical touch if that's not their primary love language. So I'm going to give you a few examples. Maybe if you're sitting close to him during a movie, or if you happen to rub your fingers through his hair, or if you put your hand on his knee, or maybe thread your arm through his while you're walking. Maybe it's under the table touches, or nibbles on the ear, or kisses, or even just putting your hand on his back as you're walking by through the kitchen. Whatever it is physical touch that is going to communicate and express love to your husband. Now, of course, I personally recommend mixing it up a little bit and including various forms of physical touch, maybe some explicit, maybe some implicit, maybe some sexual and non-sexual throughout the day, especially if this is your husband's love language, and I'm sure it will fill his love tank. So the goal here is to use these love languages to communicate your love to your husband and keep his love tank full. It is to meet his emotional needs. If you made it to the end of this video, kudos to you. Comment below with the words strong marriage. Give me a thumbs up if you found this video helpful and valuable, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye.